Hello, I'm Leonard Maltin, and I'm here with Roger Corman. We're discussing his long and fascinating career. What made you decide to do a women in prison movie?
I started New World Pictures in 1970, and I didn't have very much money, so I couldn't afford to make a mistake. So I wanted to do films that I was pretty certain I'd have a good chance with. Our first film was The Student Nurses, which did very well. For the second film, I remembered that there had been a long tradition in Hollywood of women in prison pictures, and nobody had done one recently, so I decided to do The Big Dollhouse. And I sent Jack Hill to the Philippines with a number of great-looking young women, including Pam Grier, leaving her job as a secretary to play one of the women in prison. And when the film came back, this is how you can slightly compromise your values here. Jack showed me the rough cut, and it was so vicious and so rough. I gave him my usual notes and walked out, and I said to my wife, if this is the kind of film we have to do to make money, I'm going to go into some other business. Unfortunately, the film actually broke drive-in records. And after saying that, I called in Jack and said, we're going to do The Big Birdcage. But I said, Jack, not quite so vicious this time. And we really pushed it a little on the first one. And this is an example of the audience. He did tone down The Big Birdcage, and it didn't do anywhere near as well as The Big Dollhouse.
How interesting. Now, was this an urban audience? Was this a drive-in audience? Who was it that came to see the film?
That particular film was drive-in driven, as it were. Drive-ins normally would account for 35–40% of the business. For The Big Dollhouse, drive-ins accounted for almost 2/3 of the business.
Wow.
It truly broke, in some cases, all-time drive-in records.
Amazing. Just amazing. And why the Philippines, Roger?
The script was set in Los Angeles. I calculated how much money I had and how much it would cost to shoot in Los Angeles, and I just knew that I could get a bigger looking picture for less money in the Philippines, so I said, Jack, just rewrite it and they're in the Philippines.
Now, Jack Hill has been in the news, you might say, lately because Quentin Tarantino has become so fond of his film Switchblade Sisters that he actually sponsored a reissue of it. He's another of your many graduates, isn't he?
Yes, Jack is a man of great knowledge of cinema, great knowledge of how to use the camera, editing, working with actors. He's worked all his life in exploitation films, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's had a good, successful career. But I always had the feeling that Jack might have done more, but he's had a good career.
And Pam Grier, of course, went on from this debut to become really one of the queens of the blaxploitation genre when it was hot in the 70s. And she's had a satisfying comeback lately, and she's been turning up in a number of films.
Yes, Pam Grier became our standard leading lady for several pictures. As a matter of fact, we then developed a formula where we would have two girls in trouble. One would be a white girl, one would be a black girl, and the black girl was always Pam Grier.
And audiences liked that. They responded to her.
They loved her because she had energy. The energy sparkled from her. And she was a good actress, good looking, and she could play strong scenes with a slight edge of humor.
The women in prison genre stood you in good stead for quite a number of years. I wonder, do you think that it's still potent today?
I think certain genres go on forever because they really respond to unconscious drives within us. They change according to the external surface of the society, and they also change according to the law of supply and demand. If there are too many of a certain type, then they die. But if you know this has been a successful type of film, but it died when too many were made 5 years earlier and nobody has made one for 5 years, you can come back and hit that vein again.
Well, you certainly did, and you did with great success.